we have a special treat for you on this edition of Blogging Chef, a clash of the blogospheric and gastronomic titans, guaranteed to have you gnawing at your keyboard like a ravenous bonobo. Today's competition will be a battle of the sexes, a war of competing ideologies, and most importantly, a contest of cuisines. Our first culinary competitor hails from a mysterious island appearing on no known map, where for generations a race of Amazon warrior priestesses have guarded the arcane tenets of Chicago school economics. Once every century, they send an emissary to the world of men, armed only with her invisible plane and an enchanted blog which can compel men to speak only the truth. In the guise of McArdle, mild-mannered correspondent for The Economist News Weekly, her cooking's flavor is enhanced by a superfluous British you. You, however, may better know her by her nom de guerre, our blogging chef libertarian, Jane Galt. However, to complement her supple yang, we have a potent yin, or the other way around. A paragon of progressive politics, a journalist whose magnificent column inches have only recently burst forth from the tighty-whitey-like confines of the New Republic to penetrate deep into the recesses of American foreign policy. Now, as a senior correspondent for the American Prospect and a sometime agent of the shadowy Talking Points memo empire, we give you our Iron Chef liberal, Spencer Ackerman. Now, the most important component of any blogging chef competition is the secret ingredient. For these bloggers nonpareil, we will be using the flambéed heart of Glenn Reynolds. What do you mean? Damn it! All right. Our substitute secret ingredient, as I'm told the flambéed heart of Glenn Reynolds is unavailable, will be this delicious cheese. Now, let the challenge begin.
Okay.
All right. Hello. All right.
Welcome to Bloggingchefs TV. Will, why don't you start talking?
I'm talking. We're here over at the so-called Casa de Libertarios, where we're making some sort of delicious concoction. I have no idea what it is. I am the Sue blogger over here. What's going on over there, Ezra?
Over here, we're at Cooking Heads TV at the Flophouse, home of Matt and Spencer, among others. And I am Ezra Klein, the Sue blogger. Spencer Ackerman, the head chef. And we are making a real remarkable set of dishes here that I can't pronounce, name, or identify.
Thanks to you can't pronounce your dishes.
So we got a setup here. I mean, this is by far the most complex and implausible Blogging Heads episode yet published.
Yeah, well, this is a logistical nightmare, and yet here we are.
You want logistical nightmares? My water won't boil.
Yeah, we're having problems boiling
well,
water.
We're going to do very well here, then, Megan. We should probably tell our listeners a bit about the competition here. What we've got is a liberal libertarian cook-off. Mm-hmm. You have Megan McArdle, who's a cruel, crazy free marketeer, and Spencer Ackerman, who's a good, solid, upstanding New Deal-esque liberal. And they are both cooks who like to brag, proud cooks. And a couple weeks ago, they decided to put their skills to the test, and you have 90 minutes. They've both been cooking for about 45, if I'm not wrong.
That's right.
And there will be there will be tasters, there will be judges, there are 3 courses, and at the end, one will be declared the victor, and the other will be killed in a particularly grisly fashion. So a lot is riding on tonight.
I mean, don't you think that really who can cook the best really is a test of whose ideology should prevail?
I didn't actually know that.
Yeah, because, I mean, the tastiest dish says something about the intellectual merits of our particular intellectual positions.
I think our listeners and our viewers will readily agree that there's some ideological freight that hangs on this competition. The connection is fairly obvious. Food tastes good, the palate informs the brain learns from the palate. Naturally, this will determine which of our respective ideologies should triumph in the marketplace of ideas.
This makes a lot of sense.
And we might even see the white tablecloth marketplace of ideas.
But one kind of wonders why the Soviets and the United States during the Cold War didn't just try to settle things through some cooking.
Sure. Well, it is worth saying that we all know, as Jews have upheld for centuries now, that the finest cooking comes out of Red China. So,
the finest cooking comes out of Red China?
Comes out of Red China. I'm a big partisan of the Asian food.
Particularly on Christmas.
Particularly on Christmas. I went to a Chinese restaurant the other night, and my grandfather, who's an adorable Jewish man, called and he said, "Listen, Ezra, you can live this one when you go there. A Jew and a Chinaman," because he talks like that. A Jew and a Chinaman were sitting down to dinner one night. The Chinaman said, "How old is your civilization?" And the Jew said, 4,000 years. And the Chinaman said, "Well, mine is 5,000 years. How did you eat for the first 1,000?
That was a joke, right?
That was a joke.
Yeah, that was terrific. Yeah. Well, I love jokes about Jews and Chinamen.
I do.
So are we keeping our dishes a secret, or are we going to reveal what they are as we're trying to cook them?
I don't know. Spencer told me that we had to keep them a secret. I was not revealing the will, but I would be happy to write them down on little notes.
Well, if they're a secret, they're a secret. I don't want to give anything away. All I know is that what we have here...
Megan, do you really think we need to at this point? I mean,
there should be explanatory dialogue about the dishes. If the viewers want to know, the people have a right.
We demand to know.
Why don't you tell us what you're making, Spencer?
Well, for my first course, I'm going to be, and you can sort of see me right now out there in Blogging Headland. I've got a matriciana sauce. It's very spicy. It's got some hot sopressata in it, and I've just whipped that up with a Greek sheep's milk cheese that ideally would have been a minori, but sadly neither Cowgirl Creamery nor Whole Foods, both fine, one liberal and one rather libertarian establishment, I might add, but both fine establishments, happen not to have in stock. So I'm using what I've been assured is a close cousin. And I'm about to, right now, put this in the oven. And then for my second dish, I'm going to have something of a play on the chicken salt and vodka that's going to feature some smoked mozzarella along with some hot sopressata as well. And finally, just a bit of basil. And that's accompanied by, as viewers of Bloggingchefs TV can now see, a nice risotto that's also going to feature the smoked mozzarella.
And a ton of butter.
A metric ton, in fact. And metric because we love the liberal Canadians.
You're measuring everything in metric?
I've got what I'm calling a red rum dessert, or a frozen raspberry mascarpone that features a fair amount of rum in it. So that's the red rum for you. And Megan, I'm very curious to know both what you are making and what its ideological significance is.
Yeah.
I guess now I'm going to have to make up. I had a thought after I made up the menu of like some sort of lame theme that I could pull together. I suppose one could say the libertarians think outside of the box, and I'm making things that bloggers make when they're feeding themselves out of boxes, but I'm making them from scratch. So we're starting off with an onion soup with a open-faced mushroom and roasted red pepper crouton on the side with pesto and little goat cheese croutons in the soup. Then for the main course, there will be a macaroni and cheese if the water ever boils, with a deconstructed pesto salad and Parmesan, deconstructed arugula salad and Parmesan cheese balls. And then we're finishing with a brownie and mascarpone Napoleon with raspberry sauce.
Well, I think no matter what anyone's position is on any kind of grand political issue of the day, they can agree that that sounds absolutely delicious.
Yeah, it is absolutely. Megan, do you have any insight on the? I mean, you're just saying this is the sort of thing that bloggers make, but fancy.
Yeah, that was strange.
Because was that the significance? I mean, you can't do better than that.
Oh well. Frankly, no.
No.
I mean, I'm on short notice here. For me, cooking is like, it should be something that can be enjoyed by the entire family.
Now,
liberal, libertarian, or good old-fashioned social conservative, even.
I noticed there's no meat in your.
There is no meat.
No meat that I heard of.
I mean, there's over here at the Casa de Libertarios, we have a couple libertarian, vegetarian judges.
They're crunchy
because libertarians hate.
And that rounds out. I also want to note, if I could get Lindsay to bring down the camera here, that we have the official mascot of Liberal Side, Kingsley, Spencer's adorable, attention-loving dog, who has now had more delicious food today than I have.
Oh, you wouldn't say that the mascot is Rec? Who just bit me
and
earlier?
Interesting fact about that. Will, why don't you explain what happened with Greg earlier today?
Well, because what happened is that I was over at the Flop House and recently had a trip to South Africa, and I was explaining how stupid ostriches are. And I just did a little impersonation of an ostrich running, and it alarmed Rec, who bit me in the thigh.
We should mention at this point for a bit of exposition, because our viewers will not, in fact, know that Rec is, in fact, one of our other dogs here.
Right. He's not just one of our friends who comes by and bites people who tell gesticulation-heavy stories.
No, Rec is not a homeless guy who comes out of your house.
Flop House is it features Matt and Spencer, two of the most animated storytellers or talkers you have ever met by any means. And Rec doesn't bite them, so I do think it's something about Will's political orientation.
So you guys said you bought your ingredients at Whole Foods?
I bought a fair amount of my ingredients at Whole Foods, that's right. I remember that a long time ago, or maybe not so long ago, but it seems like a long time ago, because any distance between issues of Reason Magazine seems like forever. There was a symposium with the owner of Whole Foods, I seem to recall, over whether, in fact, he was, despite his protestations, a libertarian. And I've always been curious about that line. Why, in fact, would it be the case that the owner of Whole Foods, running his business as he feels the need to, and certainly identifies as a libertarian, would be drummed out of the libertarian movement? If my libertarian friends could explain that to me, I would be greatly indebted.
Yeah, I didn't catch the very end of your last point. What was the...
I just wondered why it is that there was a controversy over whether or not the owner of Whole Foods would be drummed out of the libertarian movement.
Well, I don't think there was any idea that he had to be drummed out of the libertarian movement. The debate and reason was about corporate social responsibility. And so Milton Friedman's famous essay titled, what is the title of Friedman's essay, Megan? Do you remember?
No idea.
Was it something called The Responsibility of Business?
But please don't take me out of the libertarian movement.
I won't. Your card is safe. Yeah, you would.
The deadly rack is right there if you want.
The social responsibility of business is to increase its profits.
The social responsibility of business is to increase its profits is the name of the essay, and Friedman argues that the whole point of a business concern is to increase profits for its shareholders, and that's exactly how it's going to maximize social welfare, by increasing its efficiency, by gaining profits, by efficiently allocating its resources to value uses, that companies do the most good for society at large. And so companies that start using the resources that they've gained, parts of their profits, for philanthropic purposes, and not reinvesting it into the productivity of the company, are really not being socially responsible. They're defeating the purpose of a business organization, which is to make profits, and that's good for society. Now, John Mackey was saying, hey, I've got this business, Whole Foods, and you know what? We like to run our business in a particular way. We like to buy our produce from people who produce it in a particular way. We like fair trade, coffee, and things like that. And we want to provide a high wage, often above market wage, to our employees. And he says that, well, hey, you know what? This is just as libertarian as anything else, because why should there be one model for how a business ought to work?
Well,
as long
what was
as
the
I
response to that in recent, Will?
What was the response to that?
Right. That seems, from a liberal perspective, rather unobjectionable.
Well, the problem with that is, right, now, this guy had shareholders that he didn't tell that he was planning to. So he's in charge of the company with people who invested their money with him, and he has a future responsibility to those people. They entrusted him with their savings in order to get an expected return on them. If you suddenly turn around in the middle of this and say, well, I've decided, you know how you thought I was going to give you profits? I've decided not so much profits anymore. I give you the environment. The environment may be a laudable goal, but really that's the job of the people whose money it was, not the job of the person who took the money under what has now become essentially false pretenses. Robbing from the rich to give to the poor
And what's
is
fascinating about
a
that
dubious
is
plan in a
social
prosperous
responsibility,
society.
which as a liberal, for reasons I'll explain in a moment, I'm basically against, has become a business move. It's become a way to attract upscale, often urban customers. You've seen Walmart trying to greenwash itself a bit. You've seen it all over. The idea that you can create a narrative about your product. Whole Foods does this very, very well, talking about running on wind power and all the rest. The idea that you can create a narrative about your product, you can use it in advertising, can in fact generate larger than expected returns. Now, I think that the liberal movement, because it has a sort of paucity of vision and has been run off of using government to create necessary social ends, has become too intent on attempting to pressure corporations, which in fact should not be responsible for providing health care, saving the environment, etc., and has sort of left the regulatory, or has abandoned the attempt to get government to really exercise the full weight of its regulatory and sort of social welfare and social policy power. But that is, I think, a very different critique of CSR than anything Friedman or the Whole Foods CEO is offering.
Yeah, so you don't think you have an objection to corporate social responsibility because you don't think that that's not something the corporations ought to be doing. It's something what the state ought to be doing?
No, I have an objection to the liberal focus on CSR of recent years, where there is an endless attempt, say, to pressure Walmart into changing their healthcare plans. I don't think there's any reason Walmart has to offer a really good healthcare plan. I don't think that's a business's responsibility. I think the left needs to focus on ensuring that everybody has a healthcare plan that is not reliant on the magnificent generosity of their employer. That's not how you create a just or decent or fair society. So the problem isn't if Walmart would like to give everybody $20, or if they would like to run on wind power or whatever else, they should do what they feel is best. The problem is when you try to begin guaranteeing what we believe to be necessary elements of a decent life in society out of the generosity, out of the goodness of the hearts of employers. I think corporations are a very good model for running good businesses and creating profit and creating goods that are of use to people. I don't think they're the way you guarantee. I don't think they're ways to guarantee a good life from.
Wow, it's really loud over here with the food processor.
What's going on over there?
Yeah, just a little bit.
We're just doing a little processing.
We're processing some food. It looks like some delicious red peppers are going in. Despite the fact that we have red peppers, there's nothing red about us over here at the Casa de Libertarian. About the business, about what Walmart, like the kind of the point, and I agree with John Mackey, is why not just let 1,000 flowers bloom? You can have businesses who offer lavish benefits, who try to get their energy from the electricity for their business from wind power, etc., etc. Shareholders can opt into those companies or opt out. Employees on the labor market can decide if they want to work for a place that offers certain kinds of benefits or not. Or some firms might just offer people a certain wage, no benefits, and people can use their wage to buy the benefits that they like. Because a lot of times, why do you want your employer to bundle together all of these services A lot of times you just want your employer to pay you for what you're doing, and then you can buy those services yourself.
Well, I really
agree with you in the sense that
employees were like, please, employer, stop offering me your community-rated decent health care. I'd like to go out onto the individual market where I don't have any bargaining power. The reason you don't want to let 1,000 flowers bloom, you're saying there, Will, and I'm glad we've gotten this deep into a social welfare argument during the cooking show. The reason you don't want to let 1,000 flowers bloom is because you're right. What shareholders will want may indeed not be a corporation that offers great healthcare benefits, but you will have Walmart will be able to outcompete Target if Walmart has much lower labor costs than Target, but it may indeed be that as a society we don't want all the people in the service sector to lack healthcare, to lack pensions, etc., etc. You have an issue with the grounds on which you want people to compete, and on some level you probably don't want various businesses competing to offer the lowest level of benefits they possibly can, particularly in unskilled sectors of the economy where workers frankly don't have a whole lot of bargaining power.
Yeah, well, I mean, the employers are already competing on sort of different bundles of services and different bundles of wages and benefits. For instance, there's always a debate between Costco and Walmart.
Focus in on these delicious-looking wraps of meat here for 1 second.
Oh yeah,
they're pretty delicious looking.
You're going to focus in on
you should hold that
slabs
up
of
here
meat
for the viewers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then we can get back to healthcare.
Pre-cooked salt and vodka.
It's really something.
It's really
anyway,
something.
Back to what you were saying.
Do we want to get a glimpse of what's going on over here, food-wise?
Yes, we should probably Spencer explain what he's doing here. They look.
We want to have Megan explain it. I think what we're saying.
Well, right now I'm just getting out the frying pan, which I just freed from its previous job, sitting on top of the pot while the water boiled, and we're going to make the Parmesan cheese balls, which is the last task that I have. Just as soon as the burner lights, which will be any week now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now it ought to be mentioned that the kitchens that are being used for this important battle of cuisine and ideology are not highly equipped Bobo kitchens with granite countertops, or like Viking ranges. This is sort of like gentrifier urban kitchen with just rudimentary facilities for cooking.
Right,
so
it's paneled cabinets. It's Lindsay, you want to do a panoramic shot here? Show the kitchen a little bit. It's very
yeah. You want to get a panorama of the kitchen? Yeah.
Do you want to zoom in on this oven?
I really bad. I did, however, spend a fair amount of time cleaning it, so.
Well, it definitely looks better than. It's dirty and delicious looking. That's
Well, do you think you could light that burner?
Do I think I could light the burner?
I'm moving out of the way for more kitchen. Panoramic. And we've got dogs, but I mean, there's a lot of light.
Where are the matches? Okay. I'm now lighting a burner, assisting Megan. I think that's allowed. Just these technical tasks. There it goes.
Excellent.
It's on. Yeah, we've got stoves that won't even light themselves. It's like 1964 in here.
In more ways than one. You notice the woman is doing the cooking while the man stands around and talks.
Oh, now.
Talk about the important issues of the day, sure.
Setting the world to rights, I believe, is the term.
Yeah, so Megan, like, how much cheese exactly is in this dish, and is that healthy?
It is definitely not healthy. I would anticipate that this meal will shorten your lifespan by at least 7 months.
At least 7 months. Now, shouldn't the state step in and stop us from doing that?
I hope you're not using any oils of trans fats, Megan. Yeah, I hope you're not using any trans fats in your cooking.
As many as I can cram into a very small space. I believe in trans fat.
What is a trans fat exactly, Ezra? Do you know?
What?
What's a trans fat? I mean, like, we know about the trans fat ban in New York City. In New York, the municipal government banned trans fat in the food that is made and served in the city, I believe. What is this dangerous substance that the state has taken an interest in protecting its citizens from?
Basically, it's a very, very unhealthy kind of fat that combines. I couldn't be able to tell you the food chemistry about it, but basically it's really, really cholesterol-filled fat. It basically maximizes the bad fat and minimizes the good fat that you would get. And the reason why people use it is it's a lot of preservatives inside it. So, like, you could use shortening, basically. Right. And it's very flavorful and intense. And it makes a lot of economic sense in restaurant kitchens. Basically for the reasons that preservatives do.
And there was a period when we thought it was healthy. I mean, that's the second part of it. There was a period when butter really came into attack. Butter remains unhealthy, but we created these sort of artificial fats out of the partial hydrogenation process. And everybody thought they would be better. We put a bunch of them in margarine, particularly margarine that came in stick form, which is a way of keeping it solid. And the studies weren't done, and when they did begin to come in, and we did begin to get the health info on it, it turns out these were essentially poison. They were worse yet than saturated fat, worse, than just about anything you'd come up with. So you can still use them in small quantities, but New York, as well as referencing, recently put into place a ban on the use of restaurant
cooking. Do you understand there to be a large body
of an informational industry that's not that much more expensive? So you can go back to the original Will Wilkinson, Ezra Klein, blog, liberal libertarian dog fight, where we had a nice long argument over trans fat. No, we did the smoking ban, didn't we?
I don't think we talked about trans fat. I think that was on our original list, which we royally screwed up.
It has now been in place in D.C. for about 4 or 5 months, and multiple members of this house have stopped smoking. My clothes smell wonderful, springtime fresh, and my life is wildly improved.
If I could just correct my Sue blogger for a second, it's barely been 2 months, and in fact, it has been very good for myself and several other our friends and acquaintances who quit smoking.
Well, that is the central liberal faith, isn't it? That public policy can change the preferences of its citizens in a way that conforms to the preferences of the governing elite.
Right, and indeed it did, and it's been great. I mean, you're
well, it isn't just that it can, but that it should, right?
That it should. So here's an example: the smoking ban, where the government and the trans fat ban, where a paternalistic city government has taken upon itself to help guide people's preferences in a direction more fitting with the conception of the good life shared by the ruling elite in those cities.
Right, one that continues on without lung cancer.
Yes, well, I mean, it's not without lung cancer, not lung cancer. There's all sorts of trade-offs that people have to choose to make, like whether they take pleasure from the cigarette, how much they value that relative to the health effects of it.
As a clarifying note, the smoking ban is a ban on smoking in bars. It's not that you
it's a ban on smoking
anymore.
It's not just a ban on smoking in bars on any business whatsoever.
Right.
Any place of work.
The main thing is bars, but yes, Will is correct.
Yeah, well, the main effect for 20, 30-something sort of wannabe hipsters is that they don't have to, put up with smoking bars.
Oh, these are wannabe hipsters. They're real hipsters.
They're real hipsters.
This is very hip.
Spencer Ackerman is punk rock, and he's got the tattoos to prove it.
This is punk rock kitchen right here.
It is the punk rock kitchen. Yeah, and frankly, I think we are a little intimidated by that. But you know what? We have we believe in the can-do American spirit over here at the top of the Libertarians, and even though we're intimidated by Spencer's tattoos, we're going to strive to the utmost.
By my tattoos?
By your tattoos, that's right.
Shall we show them to the viewers? There
are other viewers deserve a look at your tattoos.
I'm sorry to say, but.
That's how Spencer keeps one's feet.
What are we seeing?
All right, so now I've shown off my tattoos.
Yeah, we're keeping this a family friendly.
Yeah, my mom's going to be really proud of me, guys.
Yeah. The punk rock kitchen
this is a family vlog.
Oh my God, this looks amazing, Spencer.
Thank you.
Now, what are these guys called?
Yes,
this is called salt and mocha.
Salt and mocha.
Salt and buka.
Salt and buka. All right. I recently read a book by Bill Buford called Heat. Bill Buford was the fiction editor of The New Yorker, one of the co-founders of Granta, and he, mid-career, goes off and decides to apprentice himself to Mario Batali, the famous New York chef. And then sort of begins getting deeper and deeper into it and goes off to Italy to apprentice himself to chefs there and ends up with a crazy butcher. And it's a a remarkable book that will make even the worst, most stubborn cook decide he's got to become a true Epicurean chemist. It'll totally screw you up, and then you'll realize exactly how incapable you are the first time you try to make anything mentioned in the book, or even try to make pasta the way they do it in the book, and realize that it doesn't really turn out that way when you try. But I take continuing inspiration from Megan, who is trying to make me buy a $120 pan to make my cooking better, and Spencer, who does cook very well.
I like the distinction you're drawing there, Ezra, between me who wants you to buy an expensive pan and Spencer who knows how to cook.
Right. Well, you have to realize, Megan, I've never had your cooking.
That's all it is.
You've told me how bad mine sounds,
You're
but I've never
whistling
had
a
yours.
different tune. Very shortly, young man.
I'm very excited.
Megan,
I cook a lot of tofu, and Megan has been, and I keep setting it on fire now that I'm trying to use non-stick cookware. And Megan has been promising that she can teach me how not to do that. I tried using peanut oil, and that seems fine.
If I can actually just ask about the issue of how shortly we're going to serve, Megan, what are we at on time?
That's a good question. Can someone tell me that? Because I don't know. I'm moving Parmesan cheese balls from stove to.
Okay, let's say, I'll do the logistics here. So we were going at 45 minutes from the beginning of the broadcast. We began at what time?
6:45.
Like at 7:45.
No, we started at 6:50.
6:50.
7:35. So we've been in it for about 25 to 30 minutes. We've been in it slightly over 30 minutes, 33 minutes. So there should be about 12 minutes to go, is that right?
Yeah. Right, and I'll take this in the oven. We'll cook while you guys are serving.
Now, you gentlemen, you're having meat in your dishes, is that right?
Yes, meat in our dishes.
What kind of meat are you having?
Chicken and some hot sopressata.
Chicken and what?
Hot sopressata. It's pork, basically.
It's pork.
It looks a lot like
no beef. You're not having beef, though.
No beef.
Because everybody knows that cows fart a lot and release a huge amount of methane into the atmosphere, causing global warming.
Right.
And there's this issue that was
just posted on our blog the other day that she believes maybe we should stop eating cows and meat entirely for global warming concerns, among other reasons.
Yeah. I think global warming pretty serious.
Yeah. What would you mind repeating your argument, Megan?
Sure. I basically think that if in fact global warming is happening, which there's increasing evidence that it is, that we have a moral responsibility to try to abate it in personal lives, which is one of the reasons I don't own a car. And if eating meat is, as people are reporting, about 20% of the global greenhouse gases are created by livestock, and that's sort of a serious challenge to a meat-eating lifestyle.
So Megan, you've decided that I think everybody's agreed that global warming is a very real phenomenon.
Not Ian Murray.
Have you? What's that?
Not Ian Murray. Anyway, go on.
Not Ian Murray. Right. Well, there are. I mean, all of us involved in this particular conversation are agreed. Do people have a strong idea about what the net effect is? Because there's an interesting question about. There are actually being perhaps some positive externalities of global warming, and I don't know how they relate to the others. What would you like, Megan?
Well, could you open the oven for me?
I would.
Is that too much sous chefing?
I would be delighted to open it.
No.
So Megan, do you have some sort of evidential basis for thinking the effect of global warming is more likely to be negative on net than positive on net?
Well, there's a certain amount of status quo bias, right? We know that what we have now works. It would be a real pity if we heated up the climate by 4 degrees Celsius and it didn't. I'm less worried about, some of the doomsday scenarios that some people posit, where people are like, well, what about Venus? We'll end up with 900 degrees. And the fact is, all the carbon that's going into the atmosphere was in the atmosphere in the Jurassic. It's not like we're going to be wiped out, but it could make life very, very unpleasant for many people. And there's also, I just have to, there's a distributional justice problem, which is that a lot of the bad effects are going to happen in Bangladesh, and a lot of the good effects are going to happen in Canada.
Right. See, my relatives in Saskatchewan, near North Battleford, I think that they're looking forward to global warming with eager anticipation.
Well, and with the snow outside in D.C., so am I.
Mm-hmm. But so you actually do think though it's better not to eat, say, like cows, in order to not add to the demand for the production of massively farting animals.
I'm saying that it's possible that it might be better not to eat cows.
All right.
I'm considering the question. I've taken it under advisement. It's most likely that I will then reject this premise on a mixed basis of sort of other concerns and the fact that meat is really, really tasty. However,
Meat is very tasty.
It is very tasty. I myself was a vegetarian for 5 years and a vegan for one of those.
But that was mainly to get girls.
It was. That's the problem with punk rock.
So what happened, Spencer?
Punk rock.
Is that what Sunday?
What happened? What changed your mind?
What changed my mind is actually a story that reflects very badly on me.
Oh no.
We were. I was with some friends for the millennium in Montreal. And we were trying to figure out what would be our Y2K meal. Given that it would be the last meal of our lives, we wanted it to be something pretty special.
Of course.
And so we were, figuring out what we wanted. And off of the main drags in Montreal are some really delicious French restaurants. And my friends and I just thought, wouldn't it be really fantastic to have abrasive quail right before we go out for our festivities? And then some of my friends balked at that, saying, well, Spencer can't eat that. And I said, well, God damn it, this conviction I've had for several years really is just going to go out the window right now. I mean, it's quail. When are you really going to get the chance to eat quail? And so that was the end of my vegetarianism. And later, at probably about 6 in the morning, I then ate a Whopper. As a way of just
And you didn't get sick from all that meat all at once? Because a lot of the vegetarians I know, when they come back to meat, get pretty ill.
Well, the truth is I did get extremely sick, but I can't exclusively say that the meat was the cause of that post-New Year's illness.
Oh my God. Yeah, we were chopping some walnuts. It's deafening. I'm sorry.
We're done?
Sure. Yeah, no, they're chopping walnuts.
Sorry, we're done chopping walnuts.
Which in my earpiece sounds like the end of the world, Ragnarok or something like that. Yeah. So you started eating meat and you haven't turned back since.
That's right. I was an extremely poor vegetarian. I had done it for animal rights reasons.
Yeah.
And I found that basically compelling. It seemed to me difficult to come up with a stable calculus by which one could exclude animals from the basic category, not of rights-bearing individuals,
right?
But of individuals who feel, beings that feel pain, that have very clear cognitive responses and physiological responses to cruelty. The economics.
But now you've decided you don't give a damn.
Sorry?
Now you decide, hey, the animals taste too good, so let them suffer.
That's right. I don't have a...
If they don't want to suffer, they should stop tasting good.
I want a new evolutionary response.
Right.
They need to become bitter.
It's about choice. We make choices, they make choices.
And the animals, right. They've chosen not to taste bitter.
The point I would make is that I don't pretend to have come up with an intellectual solution to the objections. I still find it rather, many of the arguments for vegetarianism I find compelling. Just simply put, I'm a weak individual, and certainly from an Epicurean perspective, that will make
now,
quite some time.
would you have been okay given your reasons for not eating meat with humanely treated and killed meat?
No, I never found that. That there would be a rigorous or consistent enough way of distinguishing between, animals raised for the slaughter in any event and those that are simply treated, well enough while they live. And well enough.
Yeah, so you know the Ted Nugent ideology, right?
Packed inside,
right.
Very small, cage confinements or, in the cases of, geese for foie gras, have their gulls open. So on.
Well, you guys must know that, the Motor City madman, Ted Nugent, eats meat, but only meat that he kills himself.
That's right.
Ted Nugent's approach to meat has always struck me as profoundly ethical.
Yes, I think there's something to the Nuge and his dietary habits.
I'm actually totally willing to argue that anyone who eats meat should go hunting at least once.
Yeah, you should see it.
You should know what it involves for an animal to lose its life in order for you to eat.
You don't just go hunting. I would say before that, you shouldn't go hunting. You should go watch slaughterhouse.
You should go to a cabin.
I would have to drive up to Klein in California, and there was a huge, miles-long slaughterhouse that provided a lot, much of the beef even for America, and it would go even beyond the if you could just mount. It would just be acres of cows packed into these tiny little ground lots. There was no greenery anywhere. The place smelled entirely like manure, and this would go on for miles. You wouldn't be able to eat meat for weeks after driving through this sort of dystopic slaughter farm. I mean, it was really something. And the idea that if I had ever, say, poured that or watched a slaughter out of it, I mean, it was such a truly horrific existence. I mean, I think part of the reason I'm able to eat meat again now is because I don't live there. And by the way, I agree with Spencer. I think the fact that I eat is a morally indefensible thing to do. And
there's a famous point made by both David Hume and Adam Smith that our moral sentiments are most engaged by things that are nearby. So the more sort of distant we are from some subject of concern, the easier it is to take it lightly. That's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, having grown up in Iowa, around hog farms and large cattle farms, it turns out that my moral sentiments aren't really engaged at all by seeing animal slaughter. The main business in my hometown, Marshalltown, is a pork packing plant. It's disgusting and it smells bad, but it really doesn't upset me to see it. And the interesting question, if you're going to make a sentimentalist argument about, or the reason that I'm against eating meat is because I find it just sort of morally repugnant. That's really the same form of argument that Leon Cass makes about stem cell research. That I just find it repugnant. The question is whether you ought to find it repugnant or not.
Aren't those two different things, right? Like, if I stop eating meat because I'm squeamish, that's not a morally... I mean, that's morally fine. I can stop eating tomatoes because I'm squeamish. It's when you start trying to enforce those on other people that it becomes sort of a Leon Cass type issue.
Right. Yeah. And maybe because we all find, enormously obese people repugnant, we decide that we need to ban trans fats. Right? Maybe not.
Well, I definitely think there's a huge element of, educated people who tend to be thinner and richer, deciding that, the big problem in America is poor fat people.
Right.
And that they're so stupid. I've worked with homeless families and so forth, and it's not like they don't know what makes them fat. They're not retarded. They do know that if you sit down and eat a huge bucket of chicken wings followed by a cake, you will probably gain weight. They don't care. Or they care in a way that, that I care about the fact that if I smoke, I will get lung cancer. They know that it will happen, and they are making a trade-off, which is, I want to feel good right now by eating this thing, and unfortunately that makes me fat, but I value being overweight. I don't value that as highly as I value the enjoyment of it.
Megan, on that point, I've also done work here. I used to do food retrieval in New York City, and I did some research into this question a long time ago, so I can't really say this stuff is up to date, but a great deal of the obesity issue is about access to food and access to alternatives, and particularly also access to transportation to get you from one place to another. In 1998, I was part of a citywide survey on behalf of City Harvest that basically just went to the 10 poorest neighborhoods in New York in terms of economic cluster, and just tried to look at the pricing and availability of whole grains, fresh fruits and vegetables, and so forth, and its affordability, and it was appalling. And one of the reasons for that is basically, and this may be out of date, but basically there's a tax structure set up in place that basically keeps.
Yes, that's true, but here's the problem: poor people are getting fatter, right? They've been getting fatter at a remarkable rate. Supermarkets, even in poor neighborhoods, are getting better. They're not getting worse.
Well, this is less true that you're making
explanatory value.
The ideological studies have been done, and it's such that the situation has not changed. You find a very, very, very heavy correlation between obesity and childhood diabetes, an inverse correlation, and the amount of the access to fresh fruits and vegetables in the area.
And if I could just add one more point there, and I can't really speak to whether this remains to be true, but I would imagine it is. As he says in 1998, one of the reasons why this situation existed, and in particular, a certain amount of tax incentive existed for supermarkets that you would see in basically ghettos of under, I think it's 1,000 square feet, don't quote me on that, is because basically big corporations like the White Rose Corporation mostly supply those supermarkets, and they successfully lobbied Albany to make sure that they could basically price other supermarkets out of the market. And they maintain a situation where their distribution outlets basically provide the crappiest, white sugar, white flour food, and access to healthier alternatives or even other affordable alternatives diminishes rapidly as well.
And there are other elements of this as well. I mean, we should have put it all on access to food. It's certainly the case that when you have single mothers, there is less time in those families to be cooking. There's less, it is more likely those families will eat out night after night with very sort of cheap, mass-produced foods, like we were saying, a bucket of fried chicken. The mothers, end of the day, it's been a long day, they already work, they don't have necessarily the energy or the resources to tell their kids not to have tasty food that they really want and to fight to go farther to get something more expensive and better. I mean, so this is not to absolve folks of all responsibility. A lot of people eat poorly. A lot of people in our generational, in our economic, in our educational cohort eat poorly. But we do stack the deck when you move down the income ladder a little bit.
I think there is a real issue with access to good food in bad neighborhoods. But also, I'm not sure I agree with Megan that poorer citizens know full well exactly what the effects of their diet are going to be. I think there really are differences in education and in enculturation, and there are just different norms in the inner city and in the suburbs, and they have differential health effects. Now, it would be really helpful if there wouldn't be these interest groups that Spencer was mentioning.
Smoke alarm going off here. Hold on a sec.
Oh, you have a smoke alarm going off.
Well, I think Willa better keep talking while you deal with the smoke alarm.
Well, is there some kind of emergency?
No. It just got a bit smoky in here.
Is the house going to burn?
Liberals aren't as familiar with technology and the way these things work as libertarians. Unfortunately, they have insufficient access.
We're techno-futurists over here.
So unfortunately, when these things happen with their smoke alarms, they actually, it would be good if we had some sort of a state program to make sure
a tragic accident here in Northwest DC as a Bloggingchefs TV taping goes sadly awry. Keith, more with you.
Yeah, well, I hope you get some sexy firemen coming over. That would really spice this thing up a lot. Hey, we've got a couple more minutes left.
Should be out.
Yeah.
minutes left.
We have a minute
We've got a couple more minutes. How are you guys? What's your status, food-wise?
We are basically going to make if we've got a minute, we're about to be ready.
You're about to be ready? All right.
This is on the understanding that I think we worked out earlier, Spencer, that I am plating later because this stuff has to be made before.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. We've got. So, is there any other important food-related topic that we ought to cover before we go to the judging phase of Bloggingchefs?
Frankly, I feel like we should cover it after,
GM?
because once I've eaten some delicious food, I'll be much more coherent in taking on food-related topics.
Okay. So let's just end this segment. And when we get back to the table and doing some judging, and we will have a panel of judges who we will introduce to you, we can continue talking about the food-related topics that we know are on the minds of every American today.
That's right, Will.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Good work. Well, our cheese challenge is complete. Now it's time to hear from our distinguished judges. From DCS.com, Miss Lindsay Gibson. From Reason Magazine, the lovely Carrie Howley, and the highly masculine David Weigel. From the blog Grammar Police and the Washington City paper, Mr. Kristen Capps. And of Aspen Institute fame, Miss Kate Ashton. Their taste buds have now been swathed in cheeses as diverse as the ideas held by our culinary competitors. Now it's time to hear what they thought. To introduce the meals, our judges, Iron Chef Liberal, Spencer Ackerman!
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, judges. To recap, we started out tonight featuring cheese in a baked Amatriciana sauce, and alongside of that, some Minori-like sheep's cheese. That was served over some nice rustic wheat bread. Then for our main, we had a saltimbocca with smoked mozzarella and hot sopressata, alongside a risotto that also featured the smoked mozzarella. And finally, a frozen raspberry mascarpone rum dessert, which I call red rum. And now I will hear what you thought.
Well, from Spencer's, what really stood out was the saltimbocca. For me, it was fresh and inventive. The problem was the cheese wasn't the main feature of that meal. But overall, I thought his ideas on cuisine were fresh and young, and I didn't feel like they weighed down. Even though the main ingredient was cheese, I didn't feel like, oh man, I had a lot of milk product in me. I felt like it was a fresh idea.
I enjoyed the saltimbocca, although I found it a little over-salted, so it wasn't something I could have finished a whole portion of. But the dessert was a triumph. I thought it was the highlight of this entire experience. It was light, and it was well presented, and it was a joy to consume.
I think the risotto actually was the highlight of the entire experience. There are many ways to get risotto a little bit wrong, and none of them were exhibited by Spencer. Dessert was exactly like kind of frothy use of cheese that is really hard to get right in a dessert usually, and there's a little bit of difficulty with the delivery of the first course, but overall that was an entirely different use of cheese. I thought was very flavorful and worked very well.
I also thought that the introductory course was unwieldy. I didn't really feel like I was eating until we got the saltimbocca. Mine was a bit burned, but the taste was right. I didn't think it was salty, and the risotto was excellent. The dessert was peerless. It was great, and the highlight of the competition.
I actually really enjoyed the saltimbocca. I enjoy saltimbocca in general, but I thought the cheese really added something that I hadn't tried before, and I really liked it. I thought it was an improvement on just a great classic dish. And while the presentation was a little off, I was more than made up for in flavor.
Fantastic. Well, you've heard it here. His culinary sensibility is as progressive as his politics, though perhaps haunted by unintended consequences. Now it's time to hear what our panel thought about the culinary efforts of our Iron Chef blogger, Libertarian, Ms. Jane Galt. Woo!
Are you going to describe? Would you like to describe?
Sure. So we started off with a spring onion soup. We started off with a spring onion soup with goat cheese croutons and an open-faced pesto and portobello mushroom and roasted red pepper sandwich to go with it. Then we had a macaroni and cheese and an arugula salad in a Parmesan cheese bowl. To finish off, there was a brownie and brandied mascarpone Napoleon with a raspberry sauce on top.
I thought Megan's ideas on cuisine were bordered on more traditional than Spencer's. She had a macaroni and cheese. She had a soup where she put some cheese in it. I loved the cheese bowl, by the way. That was definitely visually the highlight of the meal. But in general, I think that her ideas were very well executed. I think that making everything from scratch, you could really tell that this was, that she had made it here in this home for us on this very special occasion. And I think the highlight was indeed for me the appetizer. I think the appetizer was the best. The bruschetta little open-faced sandwich was really the highlight of my meal.
I think Megan's strength was definitely the presentation. Everything was so well appointed and well designed that you almost feel hesitant to dig in. I did think that Megan was serving course after course of very heavy, flavorful dishes, which gets a little overwhelming. You feel like you can't give every course its due if you're already full, or there wasn't much to offset such intense flavors throughout the meal.
This was a much larger meal, and imagining sitting down being served this at a setting where you're not judging it, you're going to get up and take a walk afterward. It was more traditional, heavier. I thought the cheese was unlocked in more effective ways than with the previous chef. And nothing on that, but every one of these dishes, there's a strong cheese taste in it. Everything except the soup, it was used just the right amount, I think. And the dessert, which I guess was the heaviest part of the meal, was just pretty much fantastic.
I really enjoyed the macaroni and cheese. It's a really straightforward, traditional dish, but the kick at the end, the cayenne pepper, it was the last thing I tasted tonight because I wanted to go back, and I still have the taste on my tongue, and I'm still liking it. The bruschetta didn't have what I was looking for, which was cheese that I could detect both in taste and in the visual. I think that cheese is such an appealing looking food, and that's got to be a big part of it. So though the first course failed and the last course I thought was just a bit much, maybe because we had so much food, and by the time a large, heavy dessert arrived, I thought, whoa, I don't know if I could do it. Her entree was just excellent from start to finish.
I'm with Carrie on the presentation was beautiful, but I felt like it almost harmed it for me in a way, in the sense I went in looking at this cheese and expecting to taste this amazing cheesy thing, and then with the soup and the bruschetta and even the cheese bowl, I didn't taste as much cheesiness as I was expecting, and I felt the exact opposite about the dessert, because it looked kind of like a mess. We had trouble getting it on the plate, and it was amazing. It was delicious. I am going to finish it in about 5 minutes.
Very well. Well, let's get our other blogging chef out here so we can settle the question, whose cuisine shall reign supreme? We have our tally. And we have a decision both cumulative and unanimous at the level of the individual judge. With 59 points, the cheese challenge has been decided, with 59 for our Iron Chef liberal Spencer Ackerman, 63 points for blogging Iron Chef libertarian Megan McArdle. If you've been licking your screens at home, you already know that the decision has been made. The ideological and culinary competition decided. Vote and taste. Wow.